Hey guys, welcome back to another video presentation on CSEC Information Technology past paper, and the topic that we're still looking at from the syllabus is the problem solving and programming topic. The paper that we're currently looking at is the January 2023 paper 2. So let's get right into it. All right, the problem solving programming question started at number 3. So we are looking at 3EI. We are provided with a diagram, and it says that it is a flow chart which represents a repeat until loop, and we must complete the flow chart by labeling the two directional lines, leaving the condition box as true and false. So based on the criteria, based on the information that we know about a repeat until loop, right, we know that the false would be the one that enters in the loop, and then the true would be the one that exits the loop. The opposite would have been for the while loop, where the true is the part that enters in the loop, and then the false would have exit the loop. So in this case, we would label this line as the false, right? And then this line as the true. All right, so this would have given us our 2 marks. II says to draw a flow chart of the while, do, and while, same as the while loop, in the box provided. All right, so just look back at the repeat until. We know that the repeat until, the task or the action takes place before we proceed to the condition, whereas the while loop, it is a condition that we're presented with first, followed by the task to complete. So let's get into it. So we start off with our start. Our directional or flow line, right? And we said our decision first. So our decision or condition, right? So the condition goes in here, and we have one of our arrows representing the true or the false, and the other the opposite end, right? So in this case, so let's just return here just to see how they did theirs, right? So in this case, the condition that is true would be the one that goes back to the loop. So let's refer to this one as the true, right? And then we have the task. So the task is presented in that. So we're just replicating the data that they had in the previous. So do task, all right? And then this would enter back into the loop right there. All right, and then finally the false is where we would end the or provide the output. All right, so in this case, this would have provided the task for no or false, and then the information would have been presented here. If it was a false, that should have been a rectangle, can also be a square, and then this would stop. All right, so you realize that the yes side of this while loop did not connect to the stop because it entered back into a looping process. So the yes remains in the loop, and at any time where it exits the loop, then it completes the action to be performed, or it does the task. So it's do the task here, and then it stop. All right, and that would have allotted a total of 3 marks. FI says to complete the table below based on the statements in it and the flow charts that we just completed above. All right, so it says, is the condition tested at the start or end of the loop? So let's return. For the while loop, the condition was tested first, and then for the repeat until, the condition was tested at the end. All right, so the while loop, it is done at the start, and for the repeat until, it is done at the end. All right, next one, does the loop execute as long as the condition is true or false? Again, we can go to see. So the while loop executes when it is true, and the repeat until does the loop when it is false. So in here we can respond that the while loop, it is done when the condition is true, and the repeat until is done when the condition is false. All right, next one, statements in the loop must be executed, yes or no. So in this case, if we're looking at the repeat until, the task must be executed before the condition can decide to leave or to continue, right? Whereas the while loop, the condition make a decision whether to exit or to execute. So in this case, the while is a no. It does not have to execute because it can go to the false and then exit, as well as a repeat. It must take place at least once. All right, so that's a yes. And then the final one, number of times to repeat the loop is known. Both the while and the repeat we do not know, so they continue until something happens or matches the criteria. So both of these is a no, and that gives us a total of 4 marks. Next, II says to state the main requirement for the use of a for loop. So we know that a for loop is when we know the amount of time that the loop is expected to be repeated. So that's the main requirement. The amount of time the loop repeats must be known. All right, so moving on to question number 4. Question number 4 provides us with some information here. So it says an algorithm is needed to read the age of each student until it reads an age of 999. It should then calculate the average age and output both the number of students and the average age. So they provide us with an IPO chart here for which we should break down this problem and provide the input, the process, and the output. All right, so the input would have been what is it that the user need to enter. They need to enter the age, so the input would have been the age. Do we know the processing as yet? We're going to bypass that. What else do we know so far? We know that there are 2 outputs, right? The number of students, which would have been a count, and the average age, which we refer to as average. All right, what's the process? What took place between when the user entered the age to when they did the output, right? So once they entered the age, the computer would then determine if the age was not equal to the value 999 or not, right? So we could use a while loop here to say that while the age is not equal to 999, right, what is the task that should be done? Within this loop, as long as the age is not 999, we're expected to count the students, right, as well as to find their average. But before we could find the average, we would have to find the sum of the ages. So first we want to do the count, which it would be the count plus 1, right? So each time a student enters their age, that student is counted as the 1. Right, next we would have to find the sum or the total of the age, so that would have been total plus age, right? And all of this is within the while loop. So when the while loop ends, we would have been provided with the average, right? So the average student age would have been average equal total divided by our count. All right, there are different ways that we could word the information for the IPO, but I believe this, for me, was the quickest method, right? There are persons who would rather put the worded instead of the showing the calculations there, and I believe that would have still allotted the marks. All right, B says that we are given a pseudocode, so the pseudocode is here based on the IPO that we just completed, right? So they give us the pseudocode, and then I provides us with a trace table, which is doing a a trace of 4 age that were entered in order to provide the total, the count, and the average. All right, so they provide us with the breakdown here. So I'm just scrolling up so we can see both. So we're focusing on this section that gives us the formula to find total, count, and average in order to put in the information here. All right, so they gave us at the top the initial value for 0 for count, but I saw 2 here, so that means that they did the calculation when the first student entered their age. So I'll rest back the 0 here, and then we're going to proceed. So after the first student entered their age, which is 18, that is not equal to the 999. So they, which is here, right? The age is not equal to 999. So the program is expected to follow the set of instruction. The first was to find total. That would have been the last value for total plus the last value for count. So 0 plus, count. So in this, count would have been count plus 1. So I rest the 1 here, the fact that they had the 2 here. So total would have been 0 plus 1, which would have given us the 1 here. Average, 1 divided by 2, not. All right, next one. The second user entered the age 26. So to find the total, it would have been last value for total plus last value for count. So that would have been 1 plus 2 in this case, which gave us 3. Last value for count plus 1 was 2 plus 1, give us 3 right here, and they canceled out the average for that. The fourth user entered 999 as the age. So this would not have been completed. So what we would have to do is to return the previous value. So I believe that this 2 should have been a 3 because the last value for total was 3 and the last value for the count was also a 3. The total should have been 3 divided by 3, which was 1, would have been 1, but the fact that they have the 2 here divided by 3 gave us a value of 0.66. All right, so that would have been our trace table. II says to write the 2 output lines produced by the algorithm after the dry run. So the 2 output lines would have been number of students, right? So number of students, and I believe this number of student was the count, so that should have been 3, and then the average of students, right? So average students, which would have had the value based on theirs 0.66. all right, so output lines provided. Next one, I identify the line in the pseudocode that is above that needs to be corrected and state what the correction should be. All right, so let's go line by line. All right, start is okay. Count set at 0, age set at 0, average set at 0, total at 0, all of those are okay. We have a right line where the student sees the message to enter their age. That was done correctly as well. Proceeding to the while loop. So while the age is not equal to 999, they ought to do the following. So that line is okay. In order to find total, total should have been total age. So finding the total age, it should have been total plus the age, not count, right? And then to find the amount of students, it would have been count plus 1. So this line is okay. Output message, and the computer does the reading, the end, the while, that is correct. Average was the total divided by count, so that is correct. And then the 2 output message. So the error here is on line number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So line 9 has the error, and the correction should be total equal total plus age. All right, so line number 9, correction should be total equal total plus age. All right, and that would have covered the problem solving and programming questions from the January 2023 past paper. Thank you guys so very much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, but also share with those who you know would benefit from this video moving on to exams or for other reasons, right, as much as you can. Again, thank you guys so very much for watching, and do stay tuned for other video tutorials to come based on different topics from the syllabus. All right, so goodbye.